Dean Martin, the king of cool. He had the voice that melted women, the smile that sold out Vegas, and a bar tab that could have funded a small country. But behind all the lights, cigars, and rat pack laughs, there was another side of Dino. His cars. Dean's garage wasn't just a parking lot, it was a museum of swagger. Rare European coupes, flashy American iron, custom builds that screamed rat pack royalty. Cars that didn't just take him places, they announced his arrival. Tonight, we're opening the doors to Dean Martin's hidden garage. Rare, flashy, legendary, just like the man himself. Number 6, Ghia L 6.4, Dino's Italian mistress. Dean wasn't the type of guy to settle for a showroom Cadillac or a Buick with fins. Dino craved the exotic, the rare, the car that purred with a foreign accent and dripped sex appeal like sweat under Vegas lights. That's where the Ghia L 6.4 comes in. Only 26 of these hand-built coupes were ever made between 1961 and 1963. Price tag back then, a jaw-dropping $13,500, more than double the cost of a brand new Cadillac Eldorado. Adjusted for today, that's pushing over $130,000, and collectors now pay close to $400,000 if one dares to come up for auction. Underneath the long, sculpted body sat pure American firepower. A 383 cubic inch, 6.3-liter Chrysler V8, pushing around 335 horsepower and over 425 foot-pounds of torque. That was plenty to get this nearly 2-ton piece of rolling artwork moving fast enough to make the desert blur. Inside was less car and more boudoir. Deep scarlet leather stretched across wide seats, hand-polished wood gleamed under the Nevada sun, and chrome details sparkled like the sequins on a showgirl's costume. Slide into this car and it didn't feel like sitting. It felt like surrender. And the looks? Forget about it. The Ghia L 6.4 was curvier than Marilyn Monroe and sharper than a martini glass at closing time. Park it outside the Sands Casino and the sidewalk froze. Men craned their necks, women gasped. Even Sinatra, never one to let Dino have the last laugh, supposedly quipped, "Dino's car gets more whistles than his songs." And considering Dino's voice filled stadiums, that was the ultimate nod. This wasn't just a car. It was a mistress. Rare, seductive, dangerous. The kind of machine you knew you shouldn't touch, but once you did, you couldn't let go. The Ghia L 6.4 wasn't about transportation. It was about temptation. And Dean Martin, he lived on temptation. Number 5, 1957 Ford Thunderbird, Vegas and chrome. Now, if the Ghia was Dean's Italian mistress, the 1957 Ford Thunderbird was his American sweetheart. The kind of girl who didn't whisper in French, but shouted under the glow of neon lights, "Hop in, baby, and let's make some trouble." The 57 T-Bird was Ford's answer to Chevy's Corvette, but instead of being a raw sports car, it was a personal luxury cruiser, and Dean loved it. Under the hood, the sweet 312 cubic inch Y-block V8, putting out a solid 245 horsepower. And if you ticked the right boxes, up to 300 horsepower with a supercharger option. That wasn't just respectable, it was hot for the late 50s. It rode low, with a long hood and those iconic porthole windows in the removable hardtop. And the chrome? Enough to blind a man at midnight when Vegas neon bounced off it. At $3,406 new, it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't outrageous either. It was attainable flash. The car said, "I'm here for fun, not responsibility." And Dino made sure to prove it. After a late-night show at the Sands or the Copa Room, he'd slide behind the wheel, tie loosened, cigarette glowing. Sometimes Jerry Lewis rode shotgun, fresh off another comedy set, cracking wise while holding on to the dash as Dean pushed the T-Bird harder than Ford engineers probably intended. The two of them were like kids with the keys to America's candy store. The T-Bird was made for nights like that. Desert, wind in your hair, Sinatra's voice on the radio, a beautiful stranger in the passenger seat who knew she wasn't sticking around for breakfast. No back seat, no trunk space worth mentioning, no room for practicality at all. Compared to the Ghia L 6.4, the T-Bird was a different flavor of seduction. The Ghia was the mistress. Expensive, rare, and refined. The T-Bird was the fling. flashy, affordable, and fun as hell. One took you to the opera, the other to the drive-in. But Dean, he needed both, because some nights you want silk sheets, and other nights you just want to tear them apart. Number 4. Stutz Blackhawk, the Rat Pack uniform. By the early 70s, if you were Hollywood royalty, you didn't just buy a car, you bought a Stutz Blackhawk. This wasn't a vehicle, this was a velvet smoking jacket on wheels. Elvis had one, Sinatra had one, Sammy Davis Jr. had one. And Dean Martin, he didn't just own it, he embodied it. The Blackhawk was born in 1971, hard-built in Italy on a stretched Pontiac Grand Prix chassis. Price tag? An eye-watering $22,500 when new, at a time when a brand new Cadillac Eldorado cost under $7,000. Adjusted for today, that's nearly $160,000 for a car that wasn't the fastest, wasn't the lightest, but was absolutely dripping with excess. Under the hood sat a 455 cubic inch, 7.5-liter Pontiac V8, making around 425 horsepower in the early models. Top speed around 130 miles per hour. Though, let's be honest, nobody bought a Blackhawk to drag race. This was about showing up, about pulling to the curb and making the streetlights dim, out of respect. The styling was wild. A fat chrome grille that looked like it could swallow you whole, side pipes stretched like silver cigars, and wire wheels flashing brighter than a Vegas slot machine at midnight. Inside, you got real wood trim, hand-stitched leather, and, if your wallet was heavy enough, 24-karat gold-plated switches. And Dean loved flaunting it. He parked his Blackhawk right outside Dino's den, his own Vegas lounge, and you didn't need to see the neon sign to know he was inside. That car sat at the curb like a silver-plated lighter. A warning, a promise, and a wink all in one. Compared with his earlier toys, the Thunderbird with its cheeky bachelor vibe, the Ghia L6.4 with its Italian curves, and the Stutz was something else. This wasn't about speed or mystery, it was about presence. The Blackhawk didn't whisper seduction like the Ghia or flirt like the T-Bird. No. This one strutted, chest out, cigar lit, cigarette dangling from the corner of a grin. The Stutz Blackhawk was Dino in car form, louder than life, unapologetic, and still somehow cooler than anyone else in the room. Number 3. Fossil Vega Fossil 2, the French Connection. But Dean wasn't just a man of loud entrances. He also had a taste for the rare, the mysterious, the kind of machine that made people tilt their heads and ask, "What the hell is that?" Enter the Fossil Vega Fossil 2. Built in Paris between 1962 and 1964, only 180 examples of this French Grand Tourer ever hit the road. Price back then? About $12,000, making it one of the most expensive cars in the world, more than a Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. Today, good luck finding one under $400,000. The Fossil Vega looked like something out of a Bond film. Sleek roofline, wraparound windshield, interior lines with leather and exotic wood trim. But here's the kicker. Beneath all that French elegance sat pure American muscle. A 6.3-liter Chrysler Typhoon V8 making between 355 and 390 horsepower, capable of pushing this refined beauty past 150 miles per hour. That was Ferrari territory in the early 60s. Dean's Fossil was all about mystery. Most people couldn't pronounce the name, let alone recognize it, and Dean loved that. Why blend in with a Ferrari when you could confuse everyone and still look cooler than hell? One story goes that Dino once drove his Fossil Vega up to Lake Tahoe for a show. A valet, slack-jawed, asked if it was a Ferrari. Dino, with that lazy grin and a cigarette dangling, just said, "Kid, it's whatever gets me laid tonight." Classic Dino, turning mystery into charm with a one-liner. Now, compared to the Stutz Blackhawk, the Fossil was its polar opposite. The Stutz screamed, "Look at me!" and Fossil whispered, "Figure me out." The Blackhawk was a cigar in public. The Fossil was a secret glass of champagne in a private lounge. One was brash, loud, unapologetic. The other was quiet, refined, dangerously seductive. Dean needed both, because his life was always a mix of spotlight and shadows. And that was the beauty of Dino's garage. It wasn't just cars, it was characters. Each one a lover, each one a mood, each one a different side of the king of cool. Number 2. Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz Convertible, Vegas royalty. Dean Martin was many things: singer, actor, comedian. But when it came to cars, he was a Cadillac man through and through. And in the 1950s, the crown jewel of Cadillac's lineup was the Eldorado Biarritz Convertible. This wasn't just a car. It was a rolling throne. Long? Try nearly 19 feet of sheet metal and chrome, prowling down the strip like it owned the place. Wide? Wide enough that you could lose a showgirl on the bench seat and still have room for another. And flashy? With its wraparound windshield, acres of chrome, and those tail fins, the biggest Cadillac ever wore, this car didn't just catch the light, it owned it. Under the hood sat Cadillac's 365 cubic inch V8, pumping out 325 horsepower in 1957. That was plenty of muscle to haul around its 2.5-ton weight while still purring smooth as Dino's voice in Everybody Loves Somebody. Locals in Vegas knew the sight well. Dino behind the wheel, top down, cigarette glowing. A Cadillac convoy of Rat Pack buddies trailing behind. Sinatra may have had the swagger, but Dean had the Cadillac. On the strip, it was more than a car. It was a parade float for one man, with tail fins soaring into the desert sky like neon arrows pointing at the king of cool himself. Compared to his earlier 57 Thunderbird, the Eldorado was a different beast entirely. The T-Bird was a flirty little thing, 2 seats, tight and sporty. The Eldorado? That was the king's bed, a mobile lounge built for long nights and longer memories. One was built to impress a date, the other was to rule a city. Number 1. Dual Ghia Convertible, the Rat Pack's official ride. And now, the car that sealed Dean Martin's legend, the Dual Ghia Convertible. If there was ever a car that defined the Rat Pack, this was it. Here's the backstory. In the mid-1950s, an American company called Dual Motors teamed up with Italian coach builder Ghia to create the ultimate transatlantic Playboy's car. The result was a handmade convertible with Detroit muscle under the hood and Italian curves on the outside. Only 117 were ever made, and they were priced like gold. About $7,500 new in 1957, when the average American car cost under $3,000. The engine? A 315 cubic inch Dodge V8, making about 230 horsepower, paired with Chrysler running gear. Performance wasn't blistering, but that wasn't the point. The car was about style, about exclusivity, and about turning heads faster than a chorus line on opening night. And who bought them? Hollywood's elite. Sinatra had one, Peter Lawford had one, Sammy Davis Jr. had one, and Dean Martin? Of course, because if you didn't have a dual Ghia, you weren't really part of the inner circle. Rat Pack legend has it that owning one was practically your membership card. Dino used his dual Ghia like a prop in his offstage life. There are stories of him and Sinatra rolling into Palm Springs together, tops down, 2 dual Ghias side by side, like kings on parade. The sight must have been something. 2 of the coolest men alive, cruising in the rarest cars in America, laughing like the world was theirs. There's even that famous photo. Dean leaning against his dual Ghia, drink in one hand, lazy grin on his face, looking like a man who had cracked life's code. Because, let's be honest, he probably had. The dual Ghia was the perfect bookend to his collection. Where the Ghia L6.4 was a rare Italian mistress, the Thunderbird was a flashy fling, the Blackhawk a gangster's fantasy, and the Eldorado a throne on wheels. The dual Ghia was the soul of the Rat Pack, distilled into chrome, leather, and V8 rumble. Dean Martin's garage wasn't just about horsepower, it was about style, swagger, and stories. From French rarities to American icons, from Vegas runs to Rat Pack convoys. His cars were as unforgettable as his voice. So, here's my question to you. If Dino rolled up and tossed you the keys to one of his rides for a night in Vegas, which one are you grabbing? The Stutz, the Eldorado, or the ultra-rare dual Ghia? Drop your pick in the comments, hit the like button if you love old school legends, and don't forget to subscribe because we've got more Hollywood horsepower coming your way. Remember, Dean Martin wasn't just the king of cool, he was the king of cars with stories that still rumble down the road today.